Everybody. Like Lindsay said, my name's Kate Preston, and I am the statewide farm to school education specialist. So I work on the Harvest New York team, specifically with the farm to school. So excited to talk about hosting interactive tours with students. So today I'm going to talk just a little bit about the logistics of planning and hosting tours with students in schools, as well as sharing a couple of resources as well. Um, so for those of you, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Farm to School, but with Farm to School, we like to talk about the three C's. One being cafeteria, so that focusing on local procurement and New York products being served in the cafeteria. I have colleagues all across the state that works on local procurement. And then there's the classroom, which is where I focus. So um, helping teachers and educators teach ag and food curriculum in their classrooms, and making that connection between what's being served in the cafeteria along with educational components in the classroom. And then the last C is the community piece. So working with local producers or farmers, other organizations in the community to talk about you know, bridging that gap. Again, so these field trips really hone in that community piece. So getting students on farms in their local community, learning about their local food system and how food is produced. So, why have students visit your farm? This teaches children where their food comes from, how it's grown, and the work involved in farming. A farm is a great place to reinforce classroom subjects with sensory experiences and activities. STEM lessons and STEM curriculum go really well with agriculturally focused topics. So whether it's in classroom lessons or on the farm. And again, builds that understanding and support for local farmers and food systems. Whether, your students are in a rural community, they might drive by a farm every day on their way to school, but they don't understand the inner workings, of that farm or what is happening. Or in an urban setting as well, getting students more familiar, that their food doesn't just magically appear on their plate or in the grocery store. And then for older students, so high school students, having a field trip, it offers the opportunity of introducing potential careers in agriculture, culinary arts, and related fields. There's a lot of pieces in everyday operations that students might not necessarily think about for potential career options. So, having and hosting students at your farm is a great way to introduce careers as well. So kind of going into some logistics to think about when hosting students. So kind of a pre-trip. Bus parking is a big one. Talking with the teachers, how many students do you plan on bringing? How many chaperones? But with buses, how many buses should you expect to show up at the farm that day? And where is the best place for them to park? Bathrooms, if you thinking through that plan, a lunch plan. If students are going to spend a majority of the day on the farm, is there a place they can drop off lunches? Is there a place they can eat their lunch? Things like that. Um, Prepping the teacher on what their students should wear. So whether, if the field trip is rain or shine, wearing rain gear, wearing closed-toed shoes, being prepared for mud, just kind of helping the teacher think through those things as well. Thinking about expectations for spaces to visit or not to visit. Obviously you can't shut down your daily operations when hosting students. So thinking through the spaces on where you would like them to go, but also places where you would not like them to go. And some ideas, you could do some pre-visit things to prepare students and teachers. So just in the example here for younger students, you could record a reading of a book and send that to the classroom. So can kind of pre-introduce yourself and your farm to the students before coming, and just a little fun activity of reading a book. So time on the farm. Use your time wisely. Think about how long are students there on your farm? What do you re think about really what would you like them to experience or see? So just planning out your times. Um, a great way to get the students to experience a lot of different things on your farm, but also using your time wisely is setting up some stations, especially if you have a larger group of students. For example, I used to do a field trip with a elementary school. There was 5 sections of third grade, and obviously each section had about 25 students. So thinking about how can we best get those students through the farm. So we would set up 5 different stations and they'd spend about 20-ish minutes at each station. So looking at feed samples, going through the milking parlor, things like that. But that way you can get them into smaller groups, and it's easier to grab their attention if they're not with a large group like that. Factor in rotation time. So if you are setting up stations or you're moving around the farm, how long is it going to take to get from point A to point B? Especially with little students, time usually takes a little bit longer for them to rotate. So just take that into consideration. Also, be prepared for late buses. That happens a lot, especially if you're starting early in the morning. There can be kind of some late busing issues, so just kind of be prepared for that. A really good way to frame your time is frame your time to follow the life cycle on your farm. That's just kind of an easy way when thinking about what you want to share with students. What is the life cycle on your farm depending on your operation? In the beginning, when students get off the bus, give them a little bit of context about what they're going to see that day. A lot of these students may have never experienced or been on a farm before. And as you know, there's lots of sights, sounds, smells. So just giving them a little bit of context to ease their mind and give them what to expect in the beginning is a really nice way to start. Building connections with what they already know. We like to call that KWL. So a really good way is, everybody eats. So talking, just building that connection in the beginning makes the students more comfortable and maybe more excited to learn about what they're going to see that day. So I've talked a little bit about, setting up stations, and doing some hands-on activities. So what makes a good station or a good lesson? Like I had already mentioned, give them a little bit of background in the beginning, but don't give them too much to spoil the fun. Keep them moving, especially with younger students. Their attention spans tend to be a little bit shorter, and especially on a farm, there's lots of things for them to look at, hear, see. So keeping them moving, and again, doing some shorter time stations is a great thing to do. But having visual and sensory examples gets those students really excited. Like I said, get equipment out, or like I talked about a dairy farm visit, we had feed samples and students got to touch, smell, things like that. So anything that students are able to use their senses with makes a really impactful experience, and those students tend to get a little bit more engaged. If you do these stations, it's have your materials prepped before the students arrive. It might be a little extra legwork in the beginning, but having those stations and any materials pre-prepped is going to make that day and that station go much smoother. Um, and if you are having students do make and takes on the farm, have a system set up for teachers to take the items back. So maybe, if your you pick operations and students are able to pick some apples. Is there a space where you can have teachers set those and they can grab them on their way out? That way you don't have little kids going around the orchard with bags and bags of apples. Someone forgets theirs. So just little things like that is helpful to think about for a successful trip. So I wanted to talk about just giving a few examples here of some activities that you could possibly do on your farm. So this first one, soil activities. Soil activities can happen on any operation because soil is an important piece. So a couple kind of fun activities. This one here, this is one of my favorites, and it also is fun. It's called Soil Your Undies. So it's a really good opportunity to talk about different soil types, pH levels, and soils. And essentially, this one, you can have students go around to different places on your farm and plant a pair of tidy whities. And this is a good way to also be able to follow up with that classroom because this is an activity that obviously takes some time. You could have students plant these, and within a month or so, you can go out, dig them up, send a picture back to the classroom, and they can see how they've decomposed. Again, in the moment, though, it's a good way to talk about different soil types, the importance of soil. Maybe you can talk about why you plant certain crops in certain areas of your farm. Again, just a fun way to talk about soils, but also to stay engaged with the classroom even after the field trip. Art activities are always fun, can be a little messy and crazy, but there's a fun soil painting activity that can also be done. Um, so you can talk about soil texture and also creating compost bottles is a really fun one. And as well as worm bins. A lot of classrooms now are actually doing vermicomposting. But if this is something you do on your own operation or farm, those are worm bins are always fun to talk about as well. If again you're hosting elementary students, a great way to get them engaged is to read a book. So on these slides, I have a few examples. So there's a book called Soil in Jackie's Garden by Peggy Thomas, is a great book to introduce soil topics. Flowers. So if you're a flower operation or grow any kinds of flowers, a really fun one, to do with students, is to make seed balls. And all you need are some seeds, clay, and soils. And this one gets a little messy, but students love it. And you can either have students take them back to school with them, and they can either take them home and plant them, or if you have the opportunity to kind of do like a field trip garden at your own farm, you could have students plant these as well. And that can be another way that you can follow up with schools after the fact. Once these seed balls start to grow. Again, just another fun activity. A really simple one are germination necklaces. And again, this is a good opportunity to teach students about germination. But they just plant a little seed in a cotton ball that goes in a tube and they can make them into a necklace. Students really love to wear these around after they make them. But a lot of teachers actually take these back to their classrooms, have students hang them in their window, and they check on their seed every day. So again, another fun but simple lesson. You can do some flower identification, talk about like a shape, form, and function in the garden. If you have the opportunity to create mini bouquets, depending on, the size and the scale and the age of the students. Again, just a few examples. And then if you're a maple producer, obviously, students love, if you have the opportunity for students to taste test something, they love tasting. So you could have students taste different grades of maple syrup, and you could talk about what the differences are in that. Again, get some of the equipment out that you use when it comes to tapping. Students love to feel the lines, look at the taps itself. If you're feeling really, depending again, if they're older students, if you have a tree that maybe is at the end of its life, you could have students also try to tap a tree themselves. Again, giving those sensory experiences. And then another one that can really be talked about on any operation are pollinators. There's a fun pollination simulation game, especially if you're outside and have a lot of space. You just need a couple pool noodles. And you have a student act as a pollinator, the others as flowers, and you can talk about the importance of a pollination. What are some pollinators? Obviously, a lot of students know bees, but there's a lot of other different kinds of pollinators. So that's a really fun activity. Again, if you have different kinds of honey sticks, if you produce honey, doing a tasting is also a really fun activity. So I talked about a lot of these activity ideas. So where do we find them? So I'm going to share with you a couple different resources. I'm going to click here. So New York Agriculture in the Classroom. I don't know how many of you are familiar with them, but they do a lot of great work. But a lot of these activities that I shared, you can find for free on their website. So under their resources, and if you go to Agricultural Literacy Curriculum Matrix, it's like a Google search. As you can see, I have lots of different searches already. But if you want to do a pollinator activity, you can just search pollinator and it brings up it brings up books, um, different infographics. For example, so here's an activity. So a lot of these are meant for like an in-classroom lesson, but they're easily adaptable to do them on your farm and also in like a 15 or 20 minute session. But it provides, the materials that you might need for it. It walks you through the procedures on how to do that activity. Um, so um, they have hundreds and hundreds of different lessons ranging on different topics. So this is a really great resource. You can also, a lot of these materials are free. You might just need to download and print them. But there is an ag classroom store. So there are several things. So like those germination necklaces, you can buy all of the materials through that classroom store. And those are all linked in there as well. So that's a great way to find those activities and materials needed. The other thing I wanted to share with you is I created this farm field trip guide. This is for both teachers and producers as well. So giving tips and tricks on how to planning and leading a successful trip. Um, so in this guide, just a little bit about what you can find in here. This first section is for teachers. So this, before the trip, things that they should think about, um, during the trip. And then I'm going to scroll down to for the farmers and hosts. So again, so before the trip, I know Lindsay's going to go into some more specifics, on some of these things. But just things to think about, like know your audience, your age group, class size. Again, goes through that planning a flow like I talked about. Um, and then after going through some of the logistic things, down here are a list of different activity guides. So focusing on just a few different kinds of operations. So on a dairy farm, what are some things you could talk about? And in here as well are some links to some of those ag classroom lessons. Um, so I have both for elementary students, And then also for middle and high school. Again, with middle and high school, you still want to talk about that life cycle on the farm, but there are definitely more things you can go more in depth with. Again, a lot of teachers in middle and high school really love when they talk about different careers, especially in technology. So the high school, middle school section just gives you a little bit more of in-depth ideas on what to do with them as well. So these are just some examples to draw some inspiration. Um, Also, again, I was talking about those station ideas, a little bit of a mock schedule on like how you could plan the flow of things. Um, and then just a quick checklist when thinking about um, planning those trips. So, the field trip guide was just recently finished, so we're working on getting it on our website, but I'll drop a link. It's currently in a Google Drive that is open for anyone to share, so I'll drop that link in the chat, but hopefully we'll be on our website here soon. And then if I'll also drop the link for the literacy matrix, but that you can just quick Google New York agriculture in the classroom, and that will pop up. So I know that was kind of a lot in a brief and an overview of some logistics on hosting tours. And so now I'm actually going to turn it back over to Lindsay. She's going to go into some more specifics in her experiences when hosting farm tours.
Thank you so much, Kate. I learn something from you every single time I talk to you. You're amazing. Um, so I'm just switching it over. Beginning. Okay. Um, so I'm going to be talking about it from my point of view as a farmer. I also work for Cornell Cooperative Extension. So these are just some pictures of one of the interactive tours that we had for my son's pre-K class on the farm. Um, so we did a lot on the farm that day. And so, like I said, I work for Cornell Cooperative Extension in Harvest, New York as an ag business development marketing specialist. I also own Adirondack View Lavender. So just a little bit about the farm. We're located in Keysville, New York. We grow lavender, grapes, and sunflowers. Our main focus is lavender with a U-pick or U-cut. Our farm shop, we have a variety of products that are all made on the farm. Our big days that we do on the farm are like our kids' day called Fairies in the Lavender. We do yoga in the lavender. We do a variety of different workshops that are continuous to expand. Um, our infrastructure is a 12-foot by 36-foot building with porta potties, electricity, picnic tables, Adirondack chairs. Um, the 12 by 36-foot building is just new. We've been in operation since 2020. So we're slowly expanding. We don't do any weddings on the farm, and we do limited number of events and parties, which will probably be changing next year. And also no school experiences. We're always slowly expanding, thinking about our short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals of where we want to be on the farm. So how did we get started when it came down to the school tour? So the first thing I did was I reached out to the elementary school to see how the farm could be involved. And we've started with the pre-K class, especially since my son was in that class. I provided the school teacher with a general list of activities that I thought would be appropriate for a pre-K age. I'm not a school teacher. I have learned a lot from school teachers recently over the last year or two. So just making sure that what I was going to be doing was appropriate on the farm. The school created the permission slips along with photo permission. That's what I do want to mention is photo permission is really important, especially working with youth. You're going to see on my slides, I've blurred the pictures just to be on the safe side. I've traveled all over the world, and everywhere you go, there's different permission when it comes to taking pictures of youth. I also sent a reminder to the school a week before to make sure the kids are dressed appropriately. They're going to get dirty. They're going to get wet. bring change of clothes or anything else they needed to bring. And then the school teacher sent a reminder out to the parents. So lessons learned, like run a pilot experience. It'll help with timing, number of teachers that you need, and how many parents you involved. I think the most overwhelming part for me on the farm was having the parents there. The kids are a lot, but when you have the parents too on top of it, it just increases the number of how many people are there and moving around. So think about if you want just if especially with smaller kids, if it's just one parent, if you want two parents. I know at older age groups, they'll just be the teachers. There won't be any like additional chaperones. So think about the cost of hosting the event. Um, and then also having a pilot experience is you can get the feedback from the school and the parents. The other thing is when you have a lot of these different activities that you're doing is put in the names on the back of whatever you're making. Because kids are going to want to take care of their own thing. So like Kate said, making sure that you have ways for them to be able to take the materials easily, to be identified. Use the teachers, teacher assistants, and parents to put the kids' names and that stuff on the back if the kids can't do it themselves. Key things to consider, making sure you have available restrooms that are close by for the children. Water for like rinsing their hands off, being able to wash their hands like in the restrooms or for its porta potties. If you have like a water spout kind of situation outside there, you wash your hands up. Wipies, so like water wipes are great, or also disinfectant wipies, especially to wipe off surfaces. A garbage can, extra paper towels, a covered location. So like either having like tents or umbrellas if you're doing it, or a permanent structure. Extra water for drinking, and it might be just a spout where they can get the water out, or maybe having some couple extra water bottles available because there's always going to be somebody who forgets their water in the bottom. And then I do like to bring up, having the kids, sprayed with bug spray or sunscreen before coming. If the farm provides it, making sure that the parents are the only ones that are adding that, putting that on the child. Because I know the school systems can't be putting sunscreen and bug spray on the kids. So this was our schedule for the pre-K class. There's a lot that was involved. It went by fast and the kids were happy and entertained the entire time. So when the kids got off the school bus, we did a quick safety overview of like where they were allowed to be on the farm. And I'm going to show you a lot of pictures in the next couple of slides. So I'm just going to kind of mention these. We made lavender ornaments. There was an ice cream truck that we had come in. We did a couple different stories. So we did a story of fairies and lavender and the boy. We planted lavender. We did another story of just lavender fairies. We made fairy and gnome gardens. We had lunch. We did fairy and gnome scavenger hunt. We read the story, The Pie That Molly Grew. We planted a pumpkin patch, and then we cut fresh lavender from the high tunnel. So event hosting and location. So I always like to bring this up. This has always been my lesson learned, is making sure that you have a really good place to host the event. If it's a tent, a pavilion, enclosed building, because you never know what the weather's going to be like. If you're going to have high winds, heat, cold, rain, have a plan just in case of the weather, alternative location, having a backup day with the school to reschedule it. And then if there was money involved, like if you can't do it, provide a refund. So we did our event under pop-up tents and umbrellas that worked for this past year. We will not be doing that again because we have a permanent structure. But we were lucky we had a really good day for the kids. We're doing our events in this structure. It's like a 12 by 36 building that's the Amish made. It has electricity to it, insulated, so we could put like fans or air conditioning. So it provides like a better space and stuff. And we will be using like picnic tables and umbrellas in the future. So, so this is some insights of the different activities that we did. So we made make your own lavender ornaments. I'm always about keepsakes, especially for like the Christmas tree. You remember every single year you pull that ornament out for Christmas, like what you did that year. So we had all the kids make ornaments. So thinking about like the ability, the age group, and like being able to break down things is really important. But also having the school teachers there. They're really good about on the spot breaking things down. So I overcomplicated when I first was thinking of how I was going to teach this to a group. Um, and all it really was is just make a V, put a line through it, and add some dots. And they came out a lot of different types of ornaments came out of it. We all pretty much got a little lavender stem and something to take home. We had a little ice cream truck, and that was great because it was very hot that day. All the kids in the class were able to get an ice cream. Um, we did a story time. So the two fairy books either talked about how to grow lavender, about fairies and gnomes. Um, and then the pie that Molly grew, that's the one book that I'm glad that we really spent a lot of time on it. It was the New York State Ag in the Classroom book for 2025. And we read the book and then we planted a pumpkin patch based on that book. And I'll get into that a little bit more in the next couple slides. So we did lavender planting. Things that made it really easy and nice is I made signs up to give recognition to the pre-K class, the elementary school, and those signs stayed in the field the whole season. I did easy, inexpensively, and just taken pieces of papers, laminated them. In the future, we actually have more permanent signs for this coming year and for the future classes. I ended up making preset rows. I had to pull lavender out from previous years that had died out. So I prepped the rows, added soft, fluffy soil into each of those holes. I had water put aside and little shovels. The questions that I asked the kids is, where does lavender grow? What does lavender need to grow? These kids have like such an amazing teacher that they were able to answer all those questions at 4 or 5 years old. The things that I did learn is I bought 10 shovels for the 20 kids, and I was worried about them being able to share it back and forth. They didn't use the shovels at all. Those parents were amazing. They went with it, and those kids just ended up like pulling the dirt aside and sticking the plant in the hole, and they did an amazing job. I think they planted like 70 lavender plants. And they all wanted to water the lavender plant that they planted. So that was a little hectic to make sure every single kid got to water their specific lavender plant. We did make your own fairy and gnome garden. I will say this is probably would be the most expensive part out of our whole day. Um, and what I would advise if you're going to do anything that maybe has a little bit of a cost to it with a school is seeing if this teacher already has preset money set aside to like buy the materials and bring them to the farm to be able to do that specific activity. We did a scavenger hunt. So I do this scavenger hunt every single year for our Fairies in the Lavender Day. So I knew exactly how much time it was going to take me to preset everything outside and to run the scavenger hunt. I what I did was years like 2 or 3 years ago for our Fairies in Lavender Day is I actually laminated the scavenger hunt sheets of paper and then the kids use dry erase markers to cross out what they find along the way. So it was a really nice, engaging activity. I do it along the high tunnel so that the kids can see a variety of different plants. And the fairy garden is, I think, 10 foot by 96 feet, is where I kind of plant this out. I We did do lunch in between. I think I think it was before the scavenger hunt. And then we read the book, The Pie That Molly Grew, and that's when we went out and did our pumpkin patch planting. And so there were 30 holes out there already preset on a big tarp. We planted through it, and 29 out of 30 holes produced pumpkins. Um, so what I did was I took actually pictures of the pumpkin patch throughout the season. So I wanted to like kind of be able to show the school district what especially even a pre-K class can do. And so a little more history goes into this, and the fact that every single year the Family School Association purchases pumpkins in for an ag literacy experience in the month of October, where each classroom gets a pumpkin and they find a book in the school library and they paint the pumpkin based on that book theme. And then there's a contest that goes on social media, and anybody can participate in it. And then the classroom that has the best pumpkin, most votes for, gets a Stewart's ice cream party, which I'm a big supporter of Stewart's because they um, they get all their milk within 30 miles of their farms and their plant down in the Saratoga, Washington County area. So there's like that whole ag connection from I feel like from the pumpkins into like the final product of getting an ice cream party. And what was really nice is the principal of the school actually sent out of basically an email blast to all the parents about what had happened with the pre-K class growing the pumpkins. So the pre-K class got recognition for doing this wonderful experience. Um, and then this is something that the school district would like to continue in the future, is having us help with produce some of these pumpkins. And then the final activity that the kids did was cut your own lavender. It was the end of the day, it was getting hot. Um, and so we went into the high tunnel. They got to experience a couple different varieties of lavender. They could cut wherever they'd like. Each of the kids were given kids safe scissors, cups, and they had the opportunity if they wanted to put the lavender in water if they wanted to. And then this is a picture of the class at the end of the day. And I would say what was really nice from the school teacher did was she actually ended up having each of the kids write little thank you cards. And then they sent some pictures in frames as a thank you to the farm. So that was really very nice and amazing. I know this is going to be a question that's going to be brought up is funding and pricing. So like know your cost of what it's going to cost you. I think the most expensive thing I mentioned for me would have been like the fairy and gnome gardens. Um, those little ornaments were probably like $1. And then there really wasn't that really much else expense when it came down to it. So think about what you need to make this work on the farm. You don't want to just give away the farm. You need to make some type of revenue off of it. But working with the school, each of the different schools are going to run differently of how they run school trips. So some of them, the school class will do fundraising. Sometimes the Family School Association will have money set aside for school trips. It might be in the school budget. The family might need to pay a fee. I know my child, when he went on a class trip to the local orchard, I think it was $5. And they got like a bag of apples, a pumpkin, donuts, and cider. It was a wonderful experience for them. And also there's grants out there that the school district may be able to apply for, like New York Ag in the Classroom. There's usually grants that are available for class trips and for school supplies. Um, so those would be different opportunities. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. But I'm going to stop the recording.